We are
What's up, everybody? We are live on Twitch, Periscope, Twitter, and YouTube as well. My lovely wife just brought me a delicious-looking omelet, and she's so happy that there's another day, 3 games of football. Will Brinson here, along with RJ White and Larry Hartstein. We're going to be here from 12 until 1 when the Ravens and Titans kick off in Nashville to break down everything from a DFS and betting perspective. You guys already did the early edge with the coach. How was it? How was it? You love getting up early to fire up a live show, don't you guys?
It was great. We got some good winners in there, I'm sure. Larry and I were aligned on all of our picks, so I'm sure this is going to be an exciting show with a lot of agreement and not really much disagreement between the two of us.
Probably. That could be the case. That's fine if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it makes it easy to know who to bet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's do you want to give an overarching view of the slate, or should we just dive in?
Well, one thing that jumped out at me, Will, is just quickly looking at yesterday is like it's not really good news for the Packers if the Saints win as expected with the Rams going to Green Bay. I mean, when you think about that team and Devontae Adams and Jalen Ramsey, I don't know, it just seems to me that that's a bad matchup, and also not a good matchup for the Bucs against the Saints, who beat them like 72-26 in 2. I was just thinking the first thing I thought of was Rams Saints in another NFC title game.
I agree with you. I think the fact that Devontae is such an alpha receiver for them, I think the Rams are a bad matchup for anyone that has an alpha receiver and that leans that heavily on one guy. And now DK Metcalf still got his, but a lot of it was garbage time. And so I don't know that you necessarily, I mean, I don't know if Jalen Ramsey locks down Devontae Adams, but I think he at least mitigates the damage that he can do. So I agree with you, Larry. I think the Rams, who will probably be a pretty huge underdog in that game, are an interesting look early on. I think is it like 7.5, even though we don't really know exactly what they're going to do at quarterback?
I don't know that there's a line yet, since we don't know that that's locked in as a matchup. But
right, yeah.
Depending on what the quarterback is, it could be even higher than that. I mean, the Bears have a supposedly functional quarterback in against the Saints team that is probably as good as the Packers, if not a little bit less. Depending on how they've been going, and they're 10.5 in this game. So I mean, you could see that with the Rams if we don't know what's going on at quarterback.
Okay. All right. Well, let's. You know what? We don't need to waste too much time breaking down the stuff. Let's get into the game specifically, unless you guys have other thoughts that you want to give out. I do agree with you though, Larry. I think that the NFC is now setting up to have a really interesting Final Four potentially. And then, on the other side of the bracket, it feels like we're on a collision course for Buffalo and Kansas City at some point, where those two, and hopefully we get good weather and a total of like 65.
I mean, it depends on who wins this game. Obviously, if they get the Steelers, I think the Bills advance off of that. And I wouldn't put the Chiefs in just, in pen against the Ravens or Titans. Both those teams have great offenses. The Ravens can play some defense. So I think it would be a good game. You could get a little bit of an upset. You get a little, Ravens-Bills AFC Championship or something that nobody expected.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so let's get into that Ravens and Titans game. The line actually has moved, and I believe, let's see if I can do this properly. Let's bring up the William Hill odds. And I think it's going to be that first one. I'm a loser. The problem is all the things are the same title. I was saying I wish you could do a different thing in Chrome where you rename. Let's just guess. I'll just keep guessing until there we go. All right, we got the Ravens and Titans odds up on the screen. You see it, William Hill. We now have the Titans as a 3.5-point home dog in the playoffs. The over under 54. It's creeped down a little bit. I think I saw maybe Alan Ball or somebody with Sportsline tweet out that there's $100,000 bet that came in on the under 54.5 at William Hill. Larry, have you heard anything about that? And you and I were talking before the show. These dogs have been a little frisky against the spread in this wild card weekend, right?
Yeah, 15-1 against the closing number, the last 16 wild card games, which is kind of crazy. But if you did bet the Bucs early, you got a cover or a push yesterday. But yeah, I mean, the dogs have been covering like crazy. But this is the spot where RJ and I both, I don't want to steal RJ's thunder, but we both like the Ravens. I liked it at -3. I don't love it at 3.5. You could still find -3, -120, depending on where you shop. The total, I think, is getting a little out of control. These are two pound the ball running teams. And even though Tennessee's defense is terrible, I really think that Baltimore is going to be able to slow down Derrick Henry. He had 18 carries for 44 yards in the first 3 quarters last time. No Calais Campbell, no Brandon Williams. Then he got loose in the fourth quarter and overtime. I think they're going to slow him down. I think they're going to give Tennessee some problems. So I'm definitely going to lean under at that high.
Yeah, I don't really love the total either way. I could see a game where it's a little bit of fireworks and Baltimore's offense gets going, and Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, rises up, even if Derrick Henry is shut down a bit by that improved defensive line with Campbell and Williams back. Baltimore also had a bunch of positive COVID tests after that first game, so it's easy to say, okay, then they weren't in full health afterward. But you got to think those guys in that game, a lot of them probably weren't playing at full health then, if the virus was developing in their systems. So maybe that roster wasn't at its best in that first game, and that went to overtime. So I think you get a full health here. You get Lamar playing better. I do think Baltimore covers. I don't mind 3.5. Obviously you'd love to get 3, and we got it at 3 earlier in the week, but 3.5, I still think it's fine. They've been on fire lately. They played a bunch of easy opponents, but Tennessee's defense is in line with those easy opponents. They've allowed 430 plus yards to all of their last 5 opponents except Jacksonville, and Jacksonville does not have a functional offense. They were trying to get Trevor Lawrence and lose as many games as possible there. So I wouldn't count on that game at all. Baltimore get their revenge angle, ready for revenge. They got knocked out of the playoffs last year by Tennessee with a team that people thought was going to the Super Bowl. I think they'll run up the score on the Tennessee defense that is nowhere near as good as it was last year. So yeah, I like Baltimore to cover here, but Tennessee's offense and Ryan Tannehill, puts me a little bit queasy of taking the under.
Yeah, I like the over. I think the over is a great bet. I mean, I'm glad for the guy who who laid down $100,000 on the under. I mean, that's cool. That's fun. Have fun with that lunchtime sweat, buddy. Because I mean, the problem with this game and taking the under isn't. I think there is a game script where one of these teams gets up 10 points and they lean into the ground game. We see either a ton of Derrick Henry or a ton of Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins, a bunch of Gus Edwards mixed in. Like, that's totally possible, and that ends up melting the clock a ton. At the same time, when you have these two offenses, there are so many explosive playmakers on both sides of the ball for these offenses. I mean, A.J. Brown, you get that guy the ball on a slant, and he can take it to the house immediately, like running through dudes. Derrick Henry is a jailbreak machine. Marquise Brown is, I think, a very good bet to score a touchdown and a long touchdown in this game. He has been trending way up in terms of his production. In fact, ever since he threw that little, he did the squeaky wheel thing after he had 3 targets, 0 catches against the Titans when they lost in overtime. And the other reason why I like the Ravens as well, and I agree 3 is obviously better than 3.5. That's just how it works. Is that when you look at what happened in the last time they played, yes, we are seeing pre-drinks in 8 hours. This is me before drinking and watching 8 hours of football without a poofball hat on. That's right. Yeah. The higher the intake, the higher the ratio for the poofball hat. But I think Baltimore was up 10 points in the fourth quarter against the Titans the last time they played. Like, that's not like Baltimore to cough up that lead. And to me, there's a much better chance that they don't go into this. All right, Lamar tried to throw downfield for a kill shot to Mark Andrews. It gets intercepted. Tennessee flips the script on him and comes back. I don't think we'll see that. I think Baltimore is just the better team, and I think there's a good chance they win by double digits. I know you guys probably won't say that this is a good idea, but I think people will ask about it. Would you consider buying a half a point to get to 3?
I wouldn't. If you should be monitoring the lines and take your 3 when you can get it earlier in the week. And if you like Baltimore, just take them 3.5. If you really want to be crazy, if you really don't love the 3.5 and you think it's that much of a big deal, I would moneyline parlay Baltimore with one of these other teams.
I'd more consider the alternate prop laying 5.5 or 6.5 with Baltimore and getting a huge plus money payout.
Wait, so
I like that too. I think they win by a touchdown, so I like that too. If you can get minus 6.5 at whatever it would be, plus 160, plus 170.
Well, let's look at what we can tell you, because they have alternate lines here on William Hill. You can get the Ravens -5 at plus 110, Ravens -6.5 at plus 140, -9.5 at 200. Any of those alternate handicaps stand out to you as something you'd want to take?
I would try the 6.5. I'm not going 9.5.
9.5.
6.5 sounds good.
Yeah. Although if you go 6.5, you can go a half unit on 9.5. It's not out of the question. I think the problem is that, again, because of what Tennessee can do with AJ Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Derrick Henry, and all these guys are big time playmakers. They're really impressive athletes. It is entirely possible that Tennessee storms through the back door with some garbage time, even if they're trailing by 10 late in the game or 14 late in the game, and all of a sudden that blows that up. So maybe that's not something you necessarily want to look at. All right, let's get to some player props. Actually, first we're going to go to TD Scorer, where we said last night, and I should remind you, we will be live streaming the fourth quarter of the Steelers and the Browns game. Myself and John Breach, Debo will be with us. Maybe we'll try and find, it feels cruel to find a Browns fan to sweat it out because they've dealt with so much. As far as like a Steelers fan, Wilson would join us, but he's doing CBS Sports HQ. So we'll do that. And then we'll do a live podcast. We will stay on Twitch for the duration of the podcast. So if you want to hang out, and watch us do the podcast live, see how the sausage is made, and boy, is it ugly. You can come on and do that. Last night, we actually, I don't know if you guys ever heard this. I think we got raided by teenagers in the Twitch chat. It was crazy. All of a sudden, there was like 10 kids who they're like, football is stupid. The Washington team stinks. And they're writing in all caps, and we just didn't even see it and completely ignored them. They're like, read the chat. You've been raided. We're like, what is happening? This is insane. So I feel like I finally arrived on the new internet. But we said last night, I like Lamar Jackson at 9-1 for first touchdown score. And I also like Ryan Tannehill at 16-1 for first touchdown score. Any thoughts on those two guys and or someone you would look at in this spot, RJ?
I would go Dobbins at plus 900. 6 straight games with a touchdown, including 2 last week. They've really been getting him involved. So I think that's just the way they would go, early on in the game is to hand him the ball, let him get in there. I think Baltimore's probably favored to score first. So you look to that side, and I like him better than Lamar.
I like Dobbins. I also like Ryan Tannehill, and also as an anytime touchdown scorer. I just think there's going to be so much focus on Derrick Henry, and as we see, he can, spin out and go the other way and run for a mile. He's done it lately, and I think they might have to do that because there's just going to be so much focus on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and Breach also said last night, and we took it in the chat as well, over under for Ryan Tannehill in terms of rushing yards, 19.5. Let's see if it's moved up. Are we so sharp that we moved it up? Lamar Jackson's total rushing. We need to talk to William Hill about grouping these guys together by position. It drives me absolutely nuts. And yes, I know that I have a Control F thing on here. I don't care. So Ryan Tannehill. Where are his rush yards? All right. Anyway, do you like Ryan Tannehill's rushing yards? Do you like Lamar Jackson's rushing yards? 78.5. I will tell you the number on Ryan Tannehill in just a second, RJ.
Lamar seems high. That's what Tennessee's probably going to do to try to take him away. I would like going Lamar over on passing stats better, especially over the passing touchdowns, 1.5. Like we said on the Pick Six podcast, he went over that total in the last 3 games, even though he had low yardage totals in those games. He's gone over 9 times on the year. Tennessee's defense has given up the second most pass touchdowns in the NFL. They average over 2 per game. So all Lamar has to do is have an average game as far as Tennessee standards to pass that. And with his weapons, I think he can do better than that since he has been on a roll lately. So I would go over the passing touchdowns. I wouldn't really look at his rush yards.
It's 21.5.
Yeah, 21.5 now. I guess old John Sharp Breach calls that thing to fly up.
Yeah, I still like that over. That Lamar total is shooting up. It was 71.5, 78.5 now. And interesting, Derrick Henry's gone down from 122.5 to 118.5.
Yeah, I saw 119.5 juiced the under minus 130. Debo, somebody put in the comments in the chat that, and I don't know if it was YouTube or what, that at BetMGM, they had, here it is, BetMGM from Brian Aldrich. BetMGM has Henry rushes 150 or more rushing yards for 3-1 as their daily odds boost in my state. Too many yards or too good to pass up?
I wouldn't take it. I think that defensive line has improved to the point with Williams and Campbell that I wouldn't bank on Henry having a massive day. He would have to. I think Larry's made the point that he had in those first 3 quarters, he didn't have a good day in their first meeting, even without those guys, and then he just exploded late in the game with those guys in. I don't think he gets to that number.
Yeah, and I think, Larry, you could actually do something where instead of doing that, you could look to maybe in this. If you wanted to, if you're worried that Derrick Henry doesn't have a good game, and I also think there's a possibility that Derrick Henry has a fine game, but that the Titans are trailing and forced to throw. Now, even when they're trailing, as we pointed out on here, Arthur Smith still feeds Derrick Henry the ball. They still run the ball. Even the game script doesn't necessarily affect how many rushes Derrick Henry will have. But with Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams back, and the possibility of a deficit, maybe we see more Tannehill runs. Maybe we see more Tannehill passes, and then you could end up going with something like Dobbins over Derrick Henry in a head-to-head, which would probably be about the same odds, I would guess, as taking Derrick Henry to get 150 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's a little too steep for me. Even though they do stick to him, no matter pretty much no matter the game script, they're the best at sticking to Derrick Henry. The one I really like is Marquise Brown. I mean, this guy, 6 touchdowns last 6 games, 7 targets a game in that span. His longest reception is 21.5, and his total receiving yards, I think, is 48.5 or 49.5. I mean,
up to 49.5 now on William Hill.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Cooks just went absolutely nuts against this Tennessee secondary. I think that's a really good play.
How about his receptions there? Over 3.5 minus 145. I don't mind that at all. I prefer the receiving yards though, because he could get one long one, and that's all you really need from him.
Same here. I don't think I want to go with that. It could be like 3 for 60, 3 for 70.
Yeah. And then longest reception, as you mentioned, over 21.5. That's just too low against a Titans team that gives up deep plays all the time. RJ, thoughts on Marquise Brown?
I like those picks. I think he's a good one. I think going the game script away, if there's focus on taking Derrick Henry out on the Tennessee side, I like going over Corey Davis, over 58.5 receiving yards. He's averaging just over 70 per game. He was hitting regularly, higher than that total in the middle of the season. His yardage numbers haven't been there the last few weeks, hence why this total is a little lower than his average, but he had 11 targets last week. So he's still a major part of the plan. And that was a game they had to win, and they went to him over and over. I think Tennessee will have to do more than run Henry to win here. So I expect good numbers in the passing game, a lot of attempts, and with the focus on A.J. Brown, the focus on Henry, those are going to come Davis's way. So we talk about Baltimore. You can't cover everyone if you're Baltimore. You can do a good job against the main guys, but I think Davis could get loose and get over 50.5.
He's up to 60.5. RJ moving lines as always. I think 60.5 still fine for you, right?
Right.
Okay.
But they do have Jimmy Smith back. I mean, they got all 3 corners.
Yep, for sure. And the over under Corey Davis 4.5 receptions. There's not a chance that, and I mean, it's 12-19, so we should know this by now. AJ Brown's active, right?
I think so. I haven't looked at the inactive lists, but
I'm going to double check that while we look at this. Any other thoughts on props? Angriest asks, I like AJ Brown's receptions and or yards. I'm not sure what the line is there. I can tell you what they are. Let's see. AJ Brown longest reception 23.5. That's too low for a guy like him. Over 5.5 receptions is minus 130. That's probably a little steep for me at that number, just because he can catch 3 passes for 190 yards. That's just how he operates. Over 69.5, I don't mind as a total. Thoughts on AJ Brown, guys?
Yeah, he is officially active.
Okay. He said, if I've got breath in my body, I'm going to play. He is, as I like to say, a GAM, grown ass man.
I think the attention is more on him. I think he could get more receptions, less yards, as they try to limit, his ability to break away. And that's why I like the Davis over yards. I think he could be the one singled up and hitting big plays down the field.
Okay. We're going to talk some Titans, Ravens, DFS. We'll do some lineups at the end. I have 2 lineups that I have to fill. And I've entered the contest. I've reserved the contest, but I have not filled the lineup. So you guys are going to have to help me fill them out. This will really test my time management, RJ, because I'll be out X number of dollars if I do not properly manage this rundown. And that while I don't care about time or the existence of schedules and things like that, I do care about money. And so
are we splitting the cash?
Are we splitting the entry fee?
Good one.
All right, let's move on to the next game, which is the Chicago Bears at the New Orleans Saints. That's the 4:40 game on. Is it on Fox? Or is it on ESPN?
CBS and Nickelodeon. I'm going to actually watch it on Nickelodeon, see what they're doing differently for the Nickelodeon audience, because I'm interested in that.
Wait, is this first game on? Is the first game on ESPN? Am I crazy?
I don't know. You can pull up the schedule. I think it might.
You know what we need? You know what we need from sports books? Okay, so the first game is on ABC ESPN. I was wondering about that. I was like, why are they doing this? Because I saw Doug Kazarian talking about they're going to be doing a between the lines megacast thing where they're talking live odds, like live betting odds from Vegas about an NFL playoff game during the NFL playoff game on ESPN2. That's pretty crazy. I was like, how are they letting them do that during our CBS marquee game with the Titans and the Ravens? But yeah, this is the ABC ESPN game first. So sports books, William Hill, anybody, attach the broadcast information to the game, because I don't check. I use our NFL scoreboard page on CBS, but a lot of times I'm using a sports book. So attach the broadcasting. Just a small request.
We need to start making you write the how to watch post at CBS again, so you're intimately aware of who's broadcasting each game.
How dare you? You want it posted 5 minutes after the game starts. Okay, so we should be able to share here the Chicago Bears at the New Orleans Saints, 4:40 p.m. on CBS and Nickelodeon. Sean Payton said he's willing to get slimed if he can win this game. How did I forget that? That's on me. This is the Nets. I don't know what the hell is going on. Bears are now plus 10.5. Larry said he's seen it as high as 11 out on the open market. The total is also shot up to 48.5. So Larry, opening thoughts on this line movement and this game in particular.
Yeah, too many points for me. I jumped on the Bears when it got over 10. I mean, yeah, they're only +2 in point differential. The Saints are +145. It looks like an obvious mismatch. No Roquan Smith is terrible for the Bears, but the Saints playoff history. And also, do we know about Alvin Kamara? How healthy is he going to be? I mean, we just don't know yet. So no way I want to lay that many. Plus, the Bears, even though they didn't play great defenses, did play much better offensively down the stretch. And if you look at last week, they really dominated, the yardage, the first downs, the time of possessions. They totally messed it up in the red zone against the Packers, but that was not a 20-point blowout like it ended. I mean, in terms of the final score it was, but you know what I'm saying in terms of the stats. Yeah. So I think they can, lose this game 34-24, 31-21, something along those lines. Indoor playoff games have been going over to the tune of 70% the last decade. This total's on the rise. I don't love it as much as I did at 47, but I would still lean over.
I had been leaning to the under, now to see it go up. I don't really love that play, but I'm like Larry. I jumped on Chicago once it got over 10. It's a humongous spread for a Saints team that hasn't looked at its peak over the final stretch of the year. Better versions of this team had trouble winning by large margins in the playoffs. They haven't, won by double digits since the 2011 season, and they haven't covered in all of their 3 playoff games over the last 2 years. It just isn't a team that's blowing out good teams in the playoffs. And their defense came around last week. It's been shaky in recent weeks besides that. So I don't know that they're going to hold Trubisky down to like 10 points or anything. I think Chicago can get their points. And Chicago has a good red zone defense. I think they'll slow New Orleans down. And they can hold them to some field goals. They had 6 combined field goals in the earlier meeting between these two teams. So, I didn't want to lay 10 with the Saints once it got to 10.5. I was more comfortable, trusting the Bears at 10.5. So I like the Bears plus 10.5 in this game.
I like the under at 47.5 and took it, and now I deeply regret it. And I'm with you, RJ. Like, if it's one thing to like the under, but when you see the number move up like that, it makes you sort of want to back away from it. I don't know that I have a real option other than to just ride out the 47.5. Right? I mean, I'm sort of kind of jammed here, and I'm expecting a lot of points as a result. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, you're on the sharp side. No, you're on the under. Sorry, you're not on the sharp side. It's the money. 75% of the money is on the over.
Lovely. All right, so here's what we're going to do, Larry. We're going to cross our fingers that this game starts slow and we don't get a scripted. And the problem is Matt Nagy's pretty good at scripting drives, and Trubisky's pretty good at executing them, and Sean Payton obviously an offensive whiz. So what I need is 2 3 and outs, and then I'm going to jam the live over, and then I'm going to get out of that under bet. So that's probably not going to happen. There's probably going to be 2 immediate scores, and then I'm just hosed. But it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. I have the drunk me has a money line parlay with the Saints in Alabama on Monday, so that's exciting. I feel pretty good about that, but I don't know. I also think that I think you got to go Bears here at 10.5. It's just too many points. I mean, the Saints have 7 straight games, playoff games, home and away. It doesn't matter. 7 straight games. They have not won by more than 1 score. This is a team that is It is not the Saints team from 2009 to 2011 where tons of points, shots down the field, big plays, Drew Brees slinging all over the place. They are going to dink and dunk. They're going to throw slants to Michael Thomas. I think they're going to throw a ton of balls to Alvin Kamara. I agree with you, Larry. I think his health is certainly a concern, but with no Roquan Smith, Chicago really doesn't have anybody that can match up with him coming out of the backfield. And we saw that Drew Brees, not as much when Michael Thomas is in there, but is more than willing to lean on Alvin Kamara in terms of passing him the ball. I think he had 12 targets against the Bears the last time they played, and that was with Roquan. Obviously, Michael Thomas not in that game, but I think there's a very good chance that Kamara and Thomas are just short yardage targets, and the Saints eat up a bunch of clock. And that's sort of why I got to my underplay, but I also think that's why the Bears are interesting, because I don't expect that New Orleans will be just winging it all over the place.
Yeah, and I just look at that Saints defense. I took the Panthers last week. That was one of my best bets on the Pick Six pod. Yep. And reason being that Saints defense was very erratic. And
cost you a championship, RJ.
What's that?
Cost you a title.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. And so that Saints defense, then they showed up last week, and part of that was 5 interceptions by the Panthers quarterbacks completely falling over themselves. Does Trubisky have a 3, 4, 5 interception game in him? I don't know. They seem to have been protecting him well and doing some things, some good things with him. So hopefully they can run the ball. They can keep turnovers to a minimum and keep this a close game.
All right. Some alternate handicaps here. I don't, if we're all on the Bears, it seems unlikely that you'd be interested in getting on Chicago at +9 at 105 or +6, +4.5. I can't imagine you guys have any interest in any of that stuff, right?
No, if you want to go crazy, take the Bears money line and just hope that a weird thing happens to the Saints and Bears can, gut it out in an offensive game.
+450 for the Bears money line. That would be by far the biggest upset of the playoff. Bill Jolly from YouTube says, I can see the Bears keeping it close and making it an ugly game. I agree with that. New Orleans' defense has been really good, but I don't know that they're necessarily, I don't know. New Orleans, it doesn't feel like they feel a little convoluted coming into the playoffs. Like Breeze came back and there were moments where they looked good, but they were sort of like starting and stopping and not necessarily performing at the level that you really wanted to see. So I think there's some concerns there. As far as first touchdown scorer goes, Alvin Kamara, the 4-1, the favorite, no surprise there. Taysom Hill is interesting to me at 12-1 because of how much they use him when they're near the goal line. Jimmy Graham at 16-1. I feel like Jimmy Graham had 375 red zone targets this season. Cole Kmet, not really a ton of value late, but Mitchell Trubisky at 40-1. That's too cheap given how much they use his legs. Drew Brees at 50-1. He's the king of the sneak. You need the ball down on the 1 yard line. And then Latavius Murray would be the other guy that interests me at 12-1 just because of his role, although Kamara, obviously a big goal line guy. Anybody for you, Larry, on that list of first touchdown scorers that would intrigue you?
Anthony Miller at 22-1 there because no Mooney in this game. And the last time they played the Saints, he had 8 for 73. I definitely love him over 3.5 catches. I love over his receiving yards. I also love Cole Kmet over 2.5 catches. That guy has been averaging 6 targets with Trubisky in the lineup. So I think those guys are going to get peppered, especially with no Mooney and Lattimore on Allen Robinson. Just a shot in the dark at 22-1.
When I was looking at it last night, I saw Murray at 8-1, and I was like, he has 3 touchdowns all year. He's not the primary running back. Well, what is this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. He was the 3rd favorite, but Montgomery is the guy. When I think it just popped up here on the chat, like somebody said Montgomery first TD. I like it too. +900. It was better odds than Murray last night, which is why I wrote it down. Touchdowns in 5 straight games. He slows the season strong. The board is obviously weighted to the Saints, so if you want to get some value, I look for a Bears guy, and try to get that first touchdown early in the game. So Montgomery's my best one. The other option for me is Jimmy Graham. Like we said, no Mooney. Could increase the targets there. He's the big guy in the red zone. 16-1 seems like a little bit of value play there. I'd probably make it a little lower than that.
That Jimmy Graham number that's not a good number. Jimmy Graham is a very good play at 16-1. He is 5th in the NFL this season in red zone targets with 19. The only guys above him, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, and Calvin Ridley. Those other guys are usage monsters. Guys that were like the number 1 option on their team that soaked up all the targets. Ridley, obviously, when Julio was out. And Jimmy Graham is, I would guess that Jimmy Graham on the season probably had like 45 targets. And you're telling me that, I mean, let's see how many he had total. 76 targets, 50 catches. And of those 76 and 50, 19 and 13 were inside the 20. And then he had 12 and 9 inside of the 10, along with 6 touchdowns. He's not the athlete he once was, but he is a red zone guy for not just Mitchell Trubisky, but also, for the way that Matt Nagy calls plays. And to have that sort of red zone usage and that price at 16-1 makes no sense. I mean,
plus you have the narrative of, him going back there and
revenge game. Great point, Larry. And then also I would note Allen Robinson, who is 12-1, not a terrible price. He has 18 red zone targets as well, just 7 catches, 9 targets inside the 10 for 4 catches and 3 touchdowns. So that is pretty good. Okay. All the Browns tests have come back negative. We are good to go for all 3 football games, according to a report from Adam Schefter. That is good news. Talk about the player props. You mentioned, oh boy, how am I? Anthony Miller. You like his over, Larry? Do you like the receiving yards or just the receptions? 38.5 at William Hill. It seems cheap.
Seems very cheap right there. Like I said, 73 yards in the first meeting, no Mooney. And of course, the game script has the Bears playing from behind and throwing a lot. So yeah, love it.
What about for you, RJ? Anything you're looking at in terms of Bears props?
Yeah, for the Bears, I would lean, that same thinking because of the game script. Trubisky over 236.5 passing yards. It might have been up. I did my research last night for the pod. He's topped this in 5 of his 6 games since taking back the starting job. The Bears expect to get blown out, so he's going to get a chance to add garbage time stats if that happens. And QB's average about 235 pass yards against the Saints. So you just need to be slightly over average if that's your total to get that there. So I would look to Trubisky's passing yards. Going over that
241.5 now on William Hill. I would agree with that. I don't think, obviously the Saints defense is good. And they could mess up. I mean, they could mess him up, as my son likes to say. I'll mess you up. But I still think you can get Mitchell slinging the ball late, if they're trailing. And if they're winning, I can't imagine they're winning just because, David Montgomery just ran roughshed all over the Saints. Like, I think if they're winning, it means they came out aggressive, passed early. Trubisky gets you above like the 100 mark, and then the Saints will start throwing as well. And so that's the formula for how this game flies way over, by the way, is if the Bears induce the Saints into trying to play, a high scoring affair.
And if you're on the game script of the Bears winning, just take that Bears money line. Why mess around with a minus 110, minus 120 prop? You're playing that plus 450 at that point. That's
right. That's a good point. Any guys? Oh, so we took this last night, myself and Eric K, I believe, along with, let's see, Breach. I liked it. I just like the Alvin Kamara over receiving yards. It's 39.5. That's too cheap at William Hill. I think I got him at 44.5. I like the over there. I think this is a spot where they're going to use him in the passing game because you don't have Roquan Smith there. I don't love over 5.5 receptions. I'd much rather have 4.5. Any thoughts on Alvin Kamara props?
Nothing for me really. I just don't know how healthy he is coming back. He hadn't practiced. If he was 100%, I would like those over for sure. But just not knowing how he is coming into this game, not having had the practice, I just don't know. It seems like his variance is so high to me that I couldn't peg a number for him.
On the other side, I do like Montgomery over longest rush over 11.5. I think that's what it is. He's the focus lately, and he's been playing great, and just getting that many touches and to have that low of a longest rush, I think that's a good play.
Yeah, he could easily rip off a 20-yard rush. He's their only guy. He's just going to get every carry. I don't actually see the Montgomery longest rush.
I mean, 32, 23, and 22 carries the last 3 games.
His total rushing attempts is 16.5. I like that over. The only concern there, of course, is that the game gets out of hand for the Bears early and Trubisky ends up throwing 50 times. But and maybe to RJ's point is like, I don't know, you can still get to 20 carries and have the Bears lose. That's not a crazy suggestion at all, right?
Yeah, what did they have? I think they lost recently, right? Was the Packers game or something? What did he have there?
22.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go.
Yeah, that's probably short a couple of carries. I mean, he's their only guy. They're going to have to run the ball. They don't have to be long rushes. I would almost rather have the rushing attempts than the rushing yards of 61.5, because he's a guy that can go 2 or 3 yards a carry all day long. He doesn't care. They don't care. They'll just keep rolling him up there. Okay. Anything else from this game for you guys?
Yeah, I would go with the Jared Cook anytime touchdown at plus 200. He scored in 4 of his first 6 games when Breeze was healthy. Also had a touchdown last week. The Bears have given up 12 touchdowns to tight ends this year, 3rd worst mark in the league, and we're missing a pretty big guy in the middle of the defense, like we've talked about. So I think that middle defense is easier to exploit. Secondary target should benefit, with Michael Thomas back. If you pay more attention to Michael Thomas, that opens up other guys in the red zone. So I do like a Jared Cook anytime touchdown 2-1. I think he has a better than 33% chance of getting a touchdown in this game.
Okay. Larry, anything else for you in this spot?
I agree on Jared Cook. I feel like they haven't used him to the max because they're saving him for the playoffs. He's an old guy, 33. I actually covered him in high school as a basketball. He was a basketball and a football star. Great kid, great athlete. And I'm rooting for him today.
So is this a Jared Cook revenge game against Jimmy Graham for stealing all the basketball heat? By the way, Jimmy Graham plus 250 anytime touchdown score too. We talked about the red zone targets. You 16-1. If you're going to take the 16-1 on Jimmy Graham, whatever I think it would make, like, let's say you want to put $10 on Jimmy Graham at 16-1 to be the first touchdown scorer. You should probably also put $5 or $10 on Jimmy Graham anytime touchdown scorer. That way you're not bitter when he catches that second touchdown and you actually end up profiting as well. Liv W on YouTube asked Bears over 1.5 field goals.
I like it. I mean, a lot of red zone struggles last week. I think they're going to move the ball, but yeah, I like that.
And they had all those combined field goals in the first game. I think, like I said, it was 6. So that could definitely be a situation where they just sniff each other out in the red zone, and you're getting a lot of field goals instead of touchdowns.
I think that's an appropriate thing to say. It just sounded weird. I instantly pictured Sean Payton and Matt Nagy sniffing each other's butts, which is probably a me problem, not a you problem, RJ. All right, let's go to the third game on the slate. Let's see if I can figure this out. We're going to do this third game. Oh, we got 20 minutes until lineups lock. This is a problem for me. I'm not going to pull this off. Am I, RJ?
The odds right now are plus 150 on yes.
So the Browns, plus 5.5 at the Steelers on William Hill. As we noted, this game is good to go. I got to tell you, I have the Steelers -5 heavy, and I'm kind of petrified, Larry. I don't understand why this line hasn't continued to move.
I also am a little alarmed. I think it has to do with, the Browns coming back with no more players out and things like that. But I don't know. I liked it at 6. I definitely like it at under 6 and no play caller, obviously no head coach, but the Denzel Ward, I mean, he makes all the difference. Plus Kevin Johnson is out against a Steelers passing attack. That's all they do. 3 great receivers. I just think they're going to, Mason Rudolph threw for 315. Ryan Tannehill threw for 389. Mike Glennon played well against this secondary when Denzel Ward was out. And I forget the other one. There's been 4 games he's missed, and the secondary's been obliterated in those 4. So, yeah, I like it.
And then we see Pittsburgh had Rudolph at quarterback last week. The offense had the most yards since week 2. So whatever their issue was coming down the stretch with their offense, seemed like they figured it out some in that second half of that Indianapolis game where Ben, turned things on. And it continued into that game without even having been in the lineup. Whatever they did, schematically, offensively started to work. And the defense held the Browns to 220 yards total, 75 yards rushing when they were trying earlier in the earlier game of the season. And it was a blowout win for Pittsburgh. So I think that is on the table there. Without the head coach there, you could see another blowout win if everything's clicking for Pittsburgh. It's really troubling that the Browns were 10-point favorites last week against the backup quarterback, and they had to eke out a win just to get into the playoffs, trying their hardest, while Pittsburgh, everybody's rested. So yeah, I think the positive news for the Browns is why it's coming down. I think 5.5 is a value, though. I would lay it with Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to buy out of it. If I could have got, if I would have loved to have gotten, I really thought it was going to get to 10 because of all the COVID tests. I mean, I can't state this again strongly enough. They're missing their head coach. They haven't been a good football team for 25 years, for 20 years since coming back to Cleveland. They've been an awful football team every year. And Kevin Stefanski in his first year comes in and cooks up this 11-win season that gets him into the playoffs. I don't think this is a fair representation of missing your head coach. If this is the Patriots and Belichick's out the line's not staying flat, right? I don't understand that. You're missing a Pro Bowl offensive lineman on a run-heavy team, and your head coach, people are like, well, they're just going to do Stefanski's game plan and execute it. That's fine and dandy, but Alex Van Pelt has no experience doing this. You think like Frank Reich is a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator who's been a great head coach for multiple years. Sean McVay has been to the Super Bowl as well. He, as a head coach, he has been to the playoffs like 3 times, and those guys struggled badly in this pressure-packed playoff situation to manage the game. Do we really think that this guy is going to plop in and just handle this with aplomb? I'm flummoxed by this. I don't know why I just used those 3 bizarre vocabulary words.
And executing a game plan works fine if you're playing, Cincinnati and it's week 12. What happens when you get hit in the mouth against a defense that's one of the best in the league? And you have to change things on the fly and you have to adjust. Your coach isn't helping you there now. His game plan hasn't worked to that point. So I don't know what coming into the second half this team's going to look like. I think if you, even if it's a close game, early or whatever's going on, I would bet that second half line with Pittsburgh too, because they haven't been in this situation with game adjustments without having Stefanski in there.
Right. I agree. They could come out with a script, have it ready, and do well early. But I feel as the game goes along, the adjustments won't be there. But you mentioned the offensive line, the Pro Bowler who's out, but also Conklin and Teller are questionable. I'm sure they're going to try to play. But I mean, that's the foundation of the Browns. That's why they're here. They had the most improved offensive line, one of the top lines in all of football. And now you're missing one guy, and you might, have 2 other guys not fully healthy trying to block the Steelers.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't understand it. And maybe I'm just missing something, and I'm sure I'll find out when I take a fat L on Sunday night and the Browns cover somehow miraculously with some garbage time touchdown pass by Baker Mayfield. Can't wait for it. Anyway, let's get to a couple props on this one. First touchdown scorer. I mean, Nick Chubb is of course interesting. Deontay Johnson 9-1. Okay. I mean, I think you got to look at the Browns for value here, though. Austin Hooper and Rashad Higgins, Harrison Bryant stand out to me. The Browns love to use their tight ends off play action, especially in the red zone. So I think I wouldn't mind even sprinkling on Njoku, Bryant, and Hooper. And I think if one of those guys catch the first pass, you're in pretty good shape. If I'm going somebody on the Pittsburgh side, I'm probably looking at either Eric Ebron or James Washington. Y'all's thoughts?
So look at those numbers there for the top 3 Steelers receivers. You got Deontay Johnson plus 900. You got Chase Claypool plus 900. You got Juju Smith plus 1,000. Juju is tied for the team lead with receiving touchdowns at 9, and he's been the more consistent option in the second half. He has a touchdown in 6 of his last 9 games. It doesn't make any sense to me with Claypool blowing up early in the year, very spotty about when he catches his touchdowns, for him to have lower odds than Juju, for Juju to be the third option of those guys. So I think my value here is with Juju plus 1,000. Cleveland dealing with those absences at cornerback, with Ward and Kevin Johnson, like we talked about, probably missing this game. I think Juju can get another touchdown in this game. If it's the first one, you're catching this 10-1.
It's hard to avoid Nick Chubb, though. I mean, this guy, 6 straight weeks with a touchdown, 12 touchdowns this season. I mean, I like him for an anytime touchdown at even money. What is this, 8-1 to be the first? So yeah.
Okay. I don't mind Chase Claypool either at 9-1. They like using those jet sweeps. You get down there, maybe that could happen. I'll just say that Baker Mayfield at 50-1 is a little spicy. They'll roll him out and have him bootleg in as well. Juju props. Do you guys in on Juju props? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, that one in particular, catching a touchdown for sure, whatever the anytime touchdown is. And yeah, I think he goes over. I think they're just going to dominate the passing game.
Oh, sorry, plus 163 anytime touchdown Juju.
Yeah, I like that. It's touchdowns in 6 of his last 9 games, and now he's playing a team that's limited at cornerback and on an offense that throws. Like Larry was saying, they don't run the ball near the goal line. So I like that. I like going Juju over. I like going Ebron over 37.5 receiving yards. He averages about that, but he has a great matchup with the Browns. They allow about 57 per game to tight ends. Ebron's consistently getting 5+ targets, so I think he has a higher floor in a game where he has a good matchup to get to that number.
I'm actually higher. Sorry, Will. I'm actually higher on Claypool over 48.5. This guy had 11 targets last week, over 100 yards, and they made it clear they didn't want him to hit the rookie wall. I mean, that's why they were not riding him. Everyone was wondering, why isn't he in the game, on some of those primetime games? Why is he getting only 30 snaps? And I think they were saving him, and he's just so explosive. It only takes 1 or 2 plays for him to get over that number. The targets are there. So I kind of like him as my favorite receiver tonight.
I like all those. I think the Steelers Steelers can't run. The Steelers have to pass. The Browns cannot stop the pass. And Pittsburgh, even if they're leading, I would imagine will probably continue to dink and dunk. So you have a lot of target opportunities. And as M. Buchanan 15 points out on Twitch, Claypool can get to 48, and as Larry pointed out, Claypool can get to 48.5 in one catch. All right. If anybody have any more props from this game before we panic and go to my DraftKings lineup?
I just love watching Brinson misread names like in real time. Like he does it over and over and over again with these guys' names. It's hilarious.
What did I say?
So, I think he said Buchanan. It was Buckman.
Really?
BHMAN.
All right.
I like going over on Big Ben's pass attempts for that same thing. It's going to be a dink and dunk thing, even if they're ahead, averaging just over 40 attempts. But he's thrown more in the second half of the year. He had that stretch where he was getting to like 50, close to 50 every game. Arm should be fresh coming off the rest week. Cleveland has that secondary to exploit. So Ben's going to throw a lot. I think he gets over 40.5.
All right, over 40.5 Big Ben passing attempts. All right, let's bring up, not bad, 1246. We can make this work. Worst case, LOL. Oh, Buckman. I'm sorry. That's a tough one. Okay, glancing out of the corner of your eye while you're doing a live Twitch stream. That's a little bit tough. All right, so let's bring up my DraftKings account. Oh, look at that! Somebody won a contest last night. I've snuck in. I think I was the last player in on the money on the big contest I entered. And I went with Josh Allen. I bailed on Tom Brady at the last minute. It probably cost me a lot of money, but I ended up eking out a cash. So that's very exciting for me. Now we are going to build. So 100,000 to first, $20 entry here in the DraftKings Sunday special. We'll start. How do you guys want to start with this? I traditionally start just with the quarterback and pair them up with the pass catcher and then do a bring back on the other side. Does that work for you guys?
Let's do what you want to do.
All right. Well, Lamar Jackson is going to be somewhere in the range of like 50 to 60% owned in this contest. He is obviously the top option, 7,800, clearly more expensive than a guy like Drew Brees. I would say that I think you probably need to go with one of the top four. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Trubisky or Mayfield. What are your thoughts on these guys? Jackson, Tannehill, Roethlisberger, and Breeze in DraftKings.
I think Tannehill is a good weave. I think they effort to stop Henry and Tannehill has to throw. So I don't mind doing that. And then you can pair him with Brown and Davis, a couple of good receivers. And that would be a stack that I think a lot of people will have that Lamar Jackson stack, like you were saying. They won't go for him. So I also in my lineup, I have Trubisky. I don't mind going Trubisky at all. The game script should help him throwing the ball. Robinson's probably gonna get more targets. Without Mooney there, you can go with a tight end as well and think that they're going to get more targets. And that's a very cheap stack to let you do more, aside from those guys. So if you want to go the cheap way, Trubisky. If you want to go the contrarian expensive way, go Tannehill.
All right. I don't have a Trubisky lineup, so we'll do that. And then obviously we're going to add in Allen Robinson for a bring back. What do you guys think? Is it obviously Michael Thomas, or do we go with a Alvin Kamara situation?
I like Kamara. I have Kamara in mind. That was my
all right, so I'm going full fade on Derrick Henry today in DraftKings. It's what can possibly go wrong in that situation.
I'm okay with this strategy, but I think we got to have Marquise Brown in there. I mean, if you're not going to have Lamar, are we not going to have Dobbins? I mean, I think the Ravens are set up for the best offensive day.
I agree completely. No, we're not. In fact, we can even throw in Mark Andrews as tight end here. We have enough cash there. 4,600 left. Give me a defensive option here. Clearly can't go to the Saints because we have all these Bears.
I got the Steelers in mind.
Steelers will go there, and that leaves us 5,600 for a flex. Juju, Claypool, Sanders, Connor, Corey, Davis. What do we think about those? We have obviously no exposure currently to Tennessee, which is a little concerning if that game ends up shooting over. The other option would be to plug in somebody like Kareem Hunt here. And the benefit of that would be if for some reason we start slow, we would have a lot of late swap options. Like let's say Dobbins and Brown and Andrews, have monster games. You could in theory pivot to another quarterback to try and differentiate yourself if you're trailing by a lot, et cetera. But or could just ride out Trubisky. Thoughts there.
Trubisky's your differentiation anyway. People aren't going to be taking Trubisky.
No, I know. I'm just saying, but if you go with Corey Davis now, anyway, all right, who do you think? We got 10 minutes. Who do you think out of these options as you see on the page here, and I'll scroll down here a little bit. I think that's probably the floor there is Higgins.
Yeah,
Yes.
I made Corey Davis's case. I made Corey Davis's case earlier, so I like him. I made Juju's case earlier by catching a touchdown, so I like him. Those are the guys that I look toward there. But
I like Corey Davis also, but then we do have some extra money we might be able to upgrade somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go with what do you guys think? Corey Davis or Juju?
let's do Davis.
All right.
I don't know if we have to spend all our money either, because that's you get a unique lineup by not spending your money. So
we do Corey Davis at wide receiver and then come back and grab. So that we need to have Allen Robinson in there as the flex because that's the late game. That gives us an option to move up off Anthony Miller or Dobbins. Andrews is capped out, obviously. Let's see if we go wide receiver. We can move up to Higgins off of Miller. I don't know that that's. We can move up from Dobbins to Montgomery or Nick Chubb. And we don't have to spend all the money. Like I have no problem leaving cash on the table if it's the best lineup.
yeah, you could do either of those. You can also go down from Kamara if you want to get one of those Chubb guys, and then try to boost something else too if you want to do that.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. Thanks. Good catch, Larry. That's how cheap Trubisky is. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going with this Trubisky stack, I mean, I guess you could upgrade from Hollywood to Deontay, Landry, or Smith-Schuster. But I mean, I really think Hollywood's having a huge game today.
Yeah, stick with Hollywood.
Yeah. Let's see. So I mean, it really boils down. I think the Corey Davis spot is where we're looking. Because we have to have Miller and Robinson, I think, and then Kamara is the bring back for that there. So it just boils down to: do you think Juju or do we think Corey Davis is the guy? If we're going to have Brown and Andrews in there, it makes sense to have some sort of correlation, I think, with a Titans player. So we'll go with Corey Davis and just
there's that. Smith-Schuster obviously has the much better matchup, and he probably going to be more pass attempts in that game. So Smith-Schuster's probably your safer option. It depends on what we're trying to do with this part of the lineup. If we think that we need to go a little more explosive and a little more upside, then Corey Davis I think might be the play. But if you want to just take the safe option, I would go Juju here.
All right, we'll go Juju. Is that okay with everybody?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's update that one. Oh my goodness. All right. We'll do one more since we've got 7 minutes to go because I've got one more let's see, upcoming.
I'm PayPaling you some cash right now.
Okay, we'll split that one. No, we'll settle. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll pay the entry because you guys do these podcasts with me and deal with me all year long. This is my it's like my Christmas bonus to you guys. We'll split whatever happens in that one. This one's going to be for me though, because this one's more expensive. Just kidding. What if you're not going contrarian, you don't want to go with Mitchell Trubisky, RJ, who would be the quarterback you target? I mean, is it Lamar is so enticing, but just so chalky. It's basically Josh Allen yesterday, although Josh Allen obviously worked out perfectly fine for everybody.
Yeah, you can go chalky, just you don't go chalky the whole lineup. So go Lamar, go Marquise Brown, make that your signature thing here. Yep. And then look to some non-obvious plays down the board. All
right. So at running back again, I really feel like it's a full fade of Derrick Henry today. And I understand it could burn me. I get it. But if you're going to go Lamar, I think you kind of have to do that. Do we think we need Mark Andrews as a secondary pass catcher for Lamar or no?
No, I don't think so. I think you can go a little bit different on your tight end. Go with Cook or one of the Chicago guys.
All right. How do we want to? What's the best bring back here? AJ Brown, the obvious one. Could go Corey Davis as the bring back. That'll differentiate it a little bit, right?
Yeah, and we didn't go Davis in the other one, so be fine with him here.
Okay. And then at running back. Is it insane to fade? I feel like Lamar and J.K. Dobbins actually have a positive correlation with each other too, even though he doesn't pass to his running backs. Just because if Lamar is running really well, it just seems to open things up for Dobbins in a big way. And again, I think to me that's looking at how this plays out. I mean, do you think that's too many pieces from that game? Would you be willing to add a tight end like Jonnu Smith too? He's pretty cheap and grades out really well.
Yeah, I don't mind Johnny there.
All right. And then, so we need some running back. We got about 5,500.
As long as we get like 60 to 70 points in that game, we're set.
That's right, Larry. I still think the Steelers are the best defensive option. The pricing is loose enough where I think everybody will be able to get them. can't go Ravens or Titans with the way we built this. Saints. What do you think? Steelers or Saints, guys?
I like the Steelers.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are the best option for you. But if you want to go with that running back slot, and you were talking to Kareem Hunt earlier, maybe you go Saints instead, since we went a Chicago lineup and our other Trubisky lineup in the other play.
Let's full fade Trubisky there, and then Kareem Hunt at 4,800 is a nice cheap option. He gets plenty of red zone looks. Oh, this is shaping up pretty good, actually. Okay, so at wide receiver with 6,800 left, we go right back to the Juju well here.
Yeah, let's go. Well, it's this is your.
No. I'm willing to listen.
I just think Claypool is just so explosive. I just love him. I think they've been saving him, and
geez Louise, that leaves. I mean, AJ Brown is a third bring back, or Nick Chubb. Well, this lineup is cooking with gas somehow. How is this working? I feel like we've got access to everybody here, except Henry and Kamara, I guess. Huh.
Yeah, it's because you went with Hunt that we have all this extra money.
Cheap running backs.
Yeah. Should we? If you're going with the Saints defense, you probably you don't have to avoid everybody in that game. I mean, Michael Thomas sticks out like a sore thumb to me right there. If that's also leverage off of Kamara, who's going to be heavily owned. What do you think? AJ Brown. I don't really love Montgomery, but I guess I don't know. Thoughts on how to fill this final flex?
I think if you go Montgomery, you're switching your defense probably, right?
Yeah, probably. So I think it's probably either Brown, Chubb. I mean, the idea of having both Chubb and Kareem Hunt and
I mean, we haven't said anything about Michael Thomas yet, and Michael Thomas is who was coming into the year the best receiver in the league, and maybe he's healthy now. If they wouldn't activate him if he wasn't healthy, and Breeze looks his way, so you're never gonna see him cheaper than that number. So
2,100 left over.
So you can go from Hunt to Chubb right now if you want.
Absolutely, that's the play, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Lamar, Dobbins, Chubb, Brown, Davis. I freaking love this lineup. If this one wins the whole thing, I will PayPal you all some cash.
Sweet.
Cool. Okay. Well, look at that, RJ. Hope you. Oh, let's not show my contest on here. Get out of here, people. I want you to see people know how much I got hiding out there. Wow. All right, we did that perfectly. Okay, so. Quick recap. If you had to make one bet today, what's that one bet you're making, Larry?
I'm going to stick with Ravens -3. I mean, it may blow up in my face when Derrick Henry has 220 yards and Lamar throws 2 picks and we see a repeat of last, but I just don't think that you can say, Lamar struggles in the playoffs. I just think it's too early. And just given current form, given how bad that Tennessee defense is, and I just think laying a field goal, this team has actually been better on the road historically under Lamar Jackson in terms of covering, and just think they get it done.
Yeah, if we're, I like that Ravens play. That would have been my play too. Now that Steelers game's down to 5.5, I'm taking the Steelers as my best play.
I will take. I like the Steelers as well. Steelers and the Ravens are the two things I bet the most on this today. So I'm with y'all in lockstep in terms of both of those picks. Let's hope we're right. Not ideal that dogs are 15-1 over the last the last 16 games in the wildcard round, and we're taking 2 favorites, but that also may present a little bit of value in terms of those favorites, right? Like the books don't want to make these huge dogs because they do keep covering. Am I talking myself into that? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, as RJ always tells me, you just have to look at each game on an individual basis. I mean, what is it about those other games that really applies to Baltimore, Tennessee with the spread, at just a field goal?
RJ?
Yeah, trends like that I like a little bit better because they happen to everybody, and so it's something situational about it. But you have to take that into account that those lessons apply to this COVID no fans type of thing, or are the lines in the right place? We just don't know. I do know the playoffs are a little bit closer. That's why I like the Bears, because I think that's the line is too big for the playoffs. But the other two, I don't mind going with the favorites. We saw the games yesterday. Most of them, the other 2 of them, except for the Rams one, could have went either way. So it's not like you were like, oh, definitely the underdogs are the way you want to go here. I mean, Bills could have covered, Bucks could have covered. they were outside the number at certain points. So yeah, just grade these games a different way. I guarantee you it's not going to be 45-1, a 45-1 streak over the next 10 years. So
right,
it's going to have to come back to the earth eventually.
By the way, the DraftKings the deadline is actually 1:05, so we had an extra 5 minutes before that happened. But because that's the game, they did this yesterday too on Saturdays. The kickoff was like at 1:10. It's bumped back a little bit, which is fine. But in my brain, as somebody who is for 17 weeks, like it's like 12:59. It's like it throws me off a little bit. I kind of like the buffer to a small degree. But you know what? We've talked enough about football. If people enjoyed watching this and you want to see more, if you love the Pick Six podcast and you want to hang out with us after the games end, we are going to be live here on Twitch and YouTube breaking down. Myself, John Breach, Debo will be with us, and maybe we'll try and find some other folks. Ryan Wilson will jump on after he's done with his HQ duties. We'll be breaking down all the action from the day, and we will sweat out the fourth quarter of Steelers-Browns. As I mentioned, I've got a lunker on the Steelers, so what could go wrong with that sweat? We'll watch me get backdoored. And then we will do the podcast live, and you can chat with us and hang out. John, really quick, Johnny Deep asks recap on player props for Tennessee, Baltimore. We'll just go around the thing. I like the over on Lamar Jackson rushing yards, over Ryan Tannehill rushing yards, and over everything for Marquise Brown. How about you guys?
Dobbins first touchdown plus 900, Lamar over 1.5 pass touchdowns, Corey Davis over 50.5 receiving yards.
And I had Marquise Brown over receiving yards and over longest catch.
Oh yeah, 21.5. I love that as well too. And I have Lamar and Tannehill scoring the first touchdown. So that should be fun when the ball goes into the air. And I realize that it is a loser, but you guys are the winners. And make sure, by the way, make sure and go to sportsline.com/join. Give me a promo code, Larry, where they can get the first month free for $1.
Edge.
Or whatever.
Actually, Edge, because of our new podcast, is first month free. Completely.
I knew
free.
I saw it free somewhere. That's right. So go to sportsline.com/join. Use promo code EDGE. You get a free month. So all throughout the playoffs, you will be getting all these picks from everybody. Plus, you get access to DFS stuff with Mike McClure and all his simulations. You get breakdowns from Martin Green on soccer matches. Champions League will be back in February, so you would get that rolled in as well. And with your membership, you also get CBS All Access, so you can stream local live games. You get you can watch the Chappelle Show. I think we have a ton of great content on there, and of course, Champions League when it returns. Plus, make sure and go, if you like this show and you like betting and you like gambling and you like winning money, go subscribe to the Early Edge podcast. Larry and RJ are on there all the time, doing a fantastic job handing out winners, along with Mike McClure. Tom Fernelli's on there. Tons of great handicappers from Sportsline, talking to Jonathan Coachman every morning. Did I miss anything else?
No, I think you got it. And we just came off a week. We're tracking all these plays, 31 and 21 for the podcast last week. So yeah,
that's 10 units. That'll get you paid out.
The juice, so probably like 9 units, but yeah,
I'll take a plus 9 unit week all day long.
Same here.
Absolutely. All right, Larry, RJ, thanks so much for taking the time. You guys are the best. Let's go win some money.